Are you mixing in your bedroom? Do you want to record bands? If you're looking to open up a home studio and start working with people, that's very admirable. Just be aware it's going to be a lot more work than you bargained for. In fact, you're probably already working against your own goals without even knowing it. Here's a list of 15 mistakes to avoid when running your home studio. Hopefully, it'll save you some grief. Now, before we jump into it, I just wanted to mention that I've got a free recording fundamentals course up for grabs. It explains in detail how a compressor works and how to use an EQ and reverb without destroying your mix. If you're an absolute beginner, it's going to be a giant help in answering many of the questions you're going to have, and the best part is, it's absolutely free. Link's in the description below, so now let's get to the mistakes that you're probably going to want to avoid. Number 1, no monitors in your studio. So I just did a poll, and with over 17,000 votes, 40% of you guys are mixing on headphones. The fuck is wrong with you guys? I mean, I know this is going to be unpopular, but let's face it, I'm not here to sugarcoat the truth. Headphones lie, at least in most cases anyway. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, of course. I've demoed some Austrian audio headphones that were very, very good, but I'm not going to give up my monitors anytime soon. I review viewers' mixes all the time on the show, and usually when something is really out of balance, there's a good bet that the track was mixed on headphones. Usually because the mix is way too bright or way too dark. And because each ear only gets one headphone, crossfeed doesn't happen, and this can really mess with you when you're trying to work with reverb and delay. Now, I'm not saying you can't do good work on headphones, it's just going to be much more difficult, especially if you're a beginner, because headphones are going to skew your result. Now, if you're in the market for some awesome affordable monitors, I'd recommend the Kali LP6 as the best bang for the buck out there. They're absolutely great. Monitors don't have to be hugely expensive, and I would definitely recommend mixing on monitors over mixing on just headphones exclusively. Doesn't mean you can't check your mix on headphones, and headphones are great for detail work, for listening for clicks or pops, that kind of stuff. But for hearing how your mix is going to translate into the world, generally, I'd recommend a set of monitors. That, and always check your mix in the car. Number 2, monitors are set up incorrectly. How many times I have walked into a client's house and looked at his home recording setup and just face-palmed. Monitors sitting on a desktop, they're facing straight on and way below ear level. Man, you guys love to work on hard mode. Seriously, if you're wondering why your mixes are so fucking bright that they make screeching your fingernails on a blackboard seem pleasant by comparison, consider the fact that they're designed to be put at ear level. Generally, you want the spot on the monitor between the woofer and the tweeter to be at the same height your ears are. Now, fortunately, monitor stands aren't that expensive and are adjustable to where they need to be. Another thing to keep in mind, you want to arrange your monitors so your head becomes one part of an equilateral triangle, meaning your speakers should be the same distance from your head as they are from each other. The other important thing is to angle them so they bisect just behind your listening position, and you should be good to go. Now, another thing I'd recommend is grabbing some monitor pads so the speakers don't transfer vibrations into your stands and therefore add noise. It's really hard to hear fine details when your monitor cabs are buzzing away. If you're like most starting home engineers, that means you're flat broke, so a great hack for this would be to try using mouse pads instead. And for the love of crab, do not put your monitors up against a wall! You're going to run into all kinds of bass issues and it will skew your results. And you'll be wondering why you've got way too much bass on your record. Now, I shot a video a couple of years back with the Kali guys where we did some room measurements and found the ideal place to set up the monitors was about 1/3 of the way back from the wall that you were going to want to face. Now, we did this with zero acoustic treatment, and I was absolutely blown away by the difference it made in the bottom end versus having the monitors up against the wall. Now, unfortunately, I handed that video off to an editor who never completed it and disappeared, so I don't think we're going to be seeing that video anytime soon. Ultimately, though, if you're working in your bedroom, a great strategy would be to empty out your room, set up your monitors in a few different positions, and see what sounds best. But Glenn, the monitors sound best where my bed should be. Well, then get rid of the bed and sleep on an air mattress, princess. You want to get good at mixing? Sometimes it requires a little bit of sacrifice, or is that too much to ask from your lordship? Number 3, no glorious PC case on your desk. I get it. You spent a lot of money on your custom PC and you want to show off that beautiful case that's got an amazing custom lighting job so you can show your potential clients just how much you mean business. Except that you're trying to mix and a large, beautiful PC case serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever when it comes to this job. Instead, get an Antec. They're quiet and they're unobtrusive. Now get it the fuck off your desk and down onto the floor where it belongs because nobody needs to see it. Really. Number 4, no acoustic treatment. Glenn, you just said that you set up some monitors with the Kelly guys and no treatment and it sounded great. Yes, I did. That was with myself and 2 guys who build monitors for a living, one of them who was an acoustician who knew what the fuck he was doing. Now I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that you're not one of those people. I've said this numerous times on the show, I'd rather mix with $1,000 worth of acoustic treatment than in a room with $40,000 worth of gear and no treatment at all. You're just going to get a clearer picture of what's going on, and expensive gear just can't beat basic physics. Sound travels in waves and will bounce off the walls and head back to your mixing position, both in and out of phase, creating peaks and valleys in the frequency spectrum. And this can throw your end result way off. My first studio had huge valleys in the mix position, and I couldn't hear the bass, so I kept adding more and more, and this drove me absolutely fucking bonkers. Fortunately, building bass traps isn't that hard or expensive. I've got a video on how to do them for about $40 each, and I'll have a link to it at the end of the video. Even if you can't install them permanently, you can attach them to a mic stand or just stack them up on top of each other. And there's all kinds of ways to make bass traps out of not so traditional methods. Like, do you have a closet in your room? Do you have a lot of clothes and hangers? Set your monitors up so the closet is behind you. Keep the closet door open and arrange the clothes so there's just a little bit of space between each hanging garment. There, you've just created a rudimentary acoustic hanger system for the price of absolutely nothing. I did exactly this when I was between studios. I moved out of my old house and into this place I'm at now. And as the studio was being built, I was working in a bedroom temporarily, and I couldn't make any permanent changes to that room. Now, at the time, I'd been reading a lot about bass traps and acoustic hangers, so I thought I'd give it a shot with a closet, and I was actually blown away by the result. I just moved out of my first studio, the one with all the bass problems, and I actually had some clients who wanted their mixes changed because there was way too much bottom end going on their desk. Now, I remember playing some of those mixes back for a buddy of mine, and he said, "Oh, there it is," as the metric fuck ton of bass on the guitars was finally revealed. And it was so satisfying to be able to quickly tweak the mixes and have the band go home happy because I could finally hear what the fuck was going on with the bottom end. All because of a closet. Now, even in this studio, it wasn't so great right at the start. I still had a bass buildup issue in the bottom end of the guitars. Now, once I built and installed some corner traps out in the tracking room where all my cabinets are, the bottom end problem just disappeared. I can't recommend building your own bass traps enough. Stop making excuses and just fucking do it already. 5, not soundproofing. Now, this is an easy mistake to make. Thinking that those cheap foam wedges you just put up on the wall is somehow soundproofing your room. Fact check, they're not. What you've done is added some acoustic treatment, but you haven't done jack shit in terms of keeping the sound from leaking out of your studio and pissing off your neighbors. To make something soundproof, you need one of 2 things. You need a surface to have mass, and it has to be airtight. Allow me to demonstrate. Now, in this case, I've got some very thick walls and they have a 2-inch air gap, and then I've got a pair of sliding glass doors. They're heavy and they're airtight. This perfectly illustrates the issues. If the doors in your studio aren't sealed, even a slight opening will allow the sound to escape. Now, lower frequencies are harder to stop than the higher frequencies, and that's why you've got to build thick walls. If you're planning on tracking live drums at your studio, you better figure out a way to seal off your drum room. And that's the first of many things you're going to have to worry about. Put some neoprene seals around your door frames and make sure any windows you've got are airtight. Then you can start worrying about how it sounds inside the room with treatment. Now, I hope to build a new studio later on this year, and I'll be documenting the entire process. So make sure you stay tuned for that, because I'm going to demonstrate a lot of how this works. Number 6, don't mentally check out on the band during production. If you're working with a band, put your fucking phone away. Or better yet, collect the band's phones and put them in a basket. Include yours so they'll see you're on equal terms with them. Lead by example. I've worked with bands that will tell you horror stories of engineers just completely disengaging from their projects, walking away to go talk on the phone for hours on end and just generally not being interested in the project that they're working on. Hell, on Judas Priest's first album, producer Roger Bain slept through the last night of mixdowns and crapped out a pretty pathetic master in the end. Seriously, that record's a fucking travesty. If people are paying you money to come into your studio and record, you better damn well give them your best. Always. They're hiring you for your expertise and your enthusiasm. You better deliver the goods, otherwise next time, they'll probably just do it themselves. Number 7, don't fix it in the mix. Now, this is a surefire way to make sure the product you're trying to make will be inferior. I've heard the let's fix it in the mix phrase more than a few times, and guess what? It always sucks. I've got a better idea. Instead of fix it in the mix, why not don't record shit? Get the source right to begin with. It'll sound better in the long run. Now, if that means tuning the drums better or spending a little more time setting up your guitar mics, it'll be worth the effort. The sound you want to hear should already be coming out of your monitors before you ever hit that record button. And if it's not, try harder. Analyze the situation, find the issue, and fix it first. Number 8, don't edit out the humanity. Just because you can does not mean you should. Modern production tools are abused to the extreme these days, and it seems like any resemblance to human performance of any kind is just simply edited away in the name of perfection. No more artistic expression. Everything must be perfectly timelined and pitch corrected, so the humanity is completely censored from the music. Boy, it sure makes records sound awesome. I've definitely sat through a few sessions where other engineers have time stretched the shit out of a guitar's performance, and I just wanted to scream, "What the fuck are you doing? It's absolutely fine the way it was!" Just because you have the tools doesn't mean you should use them at all times on everything. Restraint goes a long way, because when you're time aligning and pitch correcting, you're taking away what made the performance unique to the person who played it. And you're making it sound just like everything else. And when everything else is boring, guess what's going to happen to the project you're doing? Number 9, don't be afraid to make a decision. Digital recording is definitely a double-edged sword. It adds limitless possibilities to what can be achieved. The only problem is, with limitless possibilities, it becomes very difficult to actually decide on anything. Physical gear had limitations. EQs only had so many bands. Tape machines had 24 tracks maximum. And mixing consoles could only do so much. Now that means bands had to work within these limitations, and yet they managed to create some truly incredible music for decades on end. Digital opened up a whole new realm of possibilities, yet the music hasn't gotten any better. If anything, it's only got worse. When you have an EQ with limitless bands, when do you know when enough EQ is enough? Or 80 bazillion compressors? Now, I'm certainly guilty of this myself. I've gone on reamp benders for days on end, reamping entire albums worth of guitar tracks 20 times over until I finally said, okay, this might be right, but then again, I'm not sure. And it's that kind of indecision that can just drive you insane. Am I doing enough? Should I just let it go? That's one of the hardest things to do in a modern studio. Knowing when to say, okay, that's enough, and live with the decision. Because if you can't make a decision, you're never going to finish anything. Same thing goes with takes. I once had a shred guitar player express his excitement for working with me. He told me he wanted to do 1,000 takes per song, and all I could think was, fuck no! What are you trying to do? Torture me with your guitar playing? What about 1,000 takes is even remotely close to fun and inspiring? Personally, I've got what I call the 5-take rule. If a musician can't get something right in 5 takes, then he should go home and learn his fucking part. Of course, I always wind up making exceptions to this rule, but it's generally a good indicator if a musician actually put effort into learning the part. And as for the 1,000 takes guy, I turned down that record because honestly, slamming my hand at a car door sounds like much more fun. Number 10, don't forget to check your drum mics after every take. This one's for you guys out there tracking live drums. Don't try and bullshit me. I just know you're going to replace everything with samples anyway. But in the meantime, make sure you check your drum mics after every single take. Take a picture on your cell phone showing where everything is. That way you've got a visual reference. Why? Because drummers love to change mic positions on you and not tell you. Things get bumped or moved, and then for some strange reason, everybody thinks it's okay to not mention it. If you're spending your day tracking drums, just let the drummer know that, hey, if you bump a mic or move it, that's fine, but please let me know so I can fix it. Everything's fine. Make sure you work with the drummer on mic positions so they don't interfere with his playing. General rule of thumb, the more amateur the band, the more the drummer will complain about things being slightly different from his setup at home or making adjustments to his kit to get it to record better. They will bitch and whine to no end and blame every single mistake they make on the slight adjustment that they had to make to their set. I've even had one drummer say it was a poster on the wall that he didn't like that was making him mess up. Yeah, that's it. Your drumming is fucking amazing. It's just the poster screwing everything up. Fortunately, I've got to work with some truly incredible pro-level drummers over the years, and well, those guys never complain when you ask them to make an adjustment. They're just like, yeah, no problem. Let's rock. By the way, I'm going to be doing a new series on recording drums this summer, and I'll be going in depth into setup as well as tracking and mixing, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Number 11, don't unplug your mics with phantom power engage. This is a really bad idea that can be quite costly. Mics do not like to be plugged and unplugged while they've got phantom power on. I've unwittingly sacrificed 2 Onyx D6 kick drum mics to Thor because I unplugged them while phantom was on. Why the fuck I had phantom running in these mics is beyond me, their dynamics, but it was an error that wound up costing me $200 twice. Make sure your phantom is off before you start unhooking your mics. It just might save you a few bucks. Learn from my mistake. Number 12, don't leave the bathroom door unlocked. It's a good idea to lock your bathroom door while you're in it and you've got a studio full of people. It avoids embarrassing situations and it won't emotionally scar the musicians for life. Number 13, don't mix with your eyes. Now, we are all guilty of this one. Rely too much on the visual, spending hours tweaking out the guitar sound only to realize we've been tweaking the snare mic the entire time. Way back when, we didn't mix with computer monitors. We just had mixing consoles and relied on our ears much more heavily. In my opinion, it's a good idea just to turn your screen off every now and then, sit back and really listen to what's going on in your mix. Maybe have the mouse locked in on a control or a fader and move it around without a visual reference. It's a good habit to get into as it forces you to work with your ears instead of your eyes. Number 14, don't forget to back up your tracks. Now, back when I started out, CD burners were expensive and so was the media. And I've always regretted that I've never backed up one of my earliest projects. Sure, I've got the mixdowns, but the multi-tracks were thrown to the 4 winds. So I got into burning CDs and eventually DVDs full of multi-tracks, and wow, did that ever take some time. 4.5 gig file limits, then dual layers with competing formats. Oh yeah, just all kinds of fun. And all those discs take up quite a bit of physical space as well. Backing up your projects is a total no-brainer these days, as you can dump an entire album's worth of multi-tracks onto an SD card. And if you're in a hurry, you can hook up a portable SSD to a Thunderbolt port and your file transfers will take seconds. An even cheaper solution, you can get a 120 gig internal SSD for about $25 on Amazon and a SATA to USB-C adapter for another $14. Now this will definitely speed up your backup routine for under $40. As always, your mileage may vary depending on where you are in the world. I'm quoting American prices, so to all my Australian friends, please disregard, as you'll probably get fucked over on the prices very, very hard. Now, this also makes handing off tracks to the clients far easier. Just make sure you have a policy in place that the band is aware of when it comes to your multi-tracks. Do they get the raw stems? Do they get your DAWs project with all your settings? That's something you're going to have to decide for yourself. Before YouTube, I'd provide the tracks if they were requested. The band would get a consolidated project with raw WAV files that would be compatible with any DAW. But the Reaper project remained mine alone. Buying the chicken does not entitle one to the Colonel's secret recipe. That's how I used to do it anyway. These days, I just give away everything on the show for free. Like my free course I mentioned earlier, make sure you grab a copy if you haven't already. Number 15, don't take the path of least resistance. It's easy to sit in your control room and say, not my problem, when the band has issues making the sessions happen. Do go above and beyond for your clients because ultimately you're there to serve them and help bring their artistic vision to life. They're entrusting you to deliver the goods, so do what you can to make it happen. Even if it means driving across town to pick them up because otherwise the session wouldn't happen because they can't find a ride any other way and the bus doesn't come out to your studio. That also means driving them home when they get wasted in your studio because you want them to come back for a next time. It's a thankless task, but ultimately it's worth it because there's a lot more to this job than just pushing buttons.